Oh look! The new Nobel Prize in Medicine just dropped. Let's see what it's all about. Is this you? Is biology something that you once found interesting before they started adding more acronyms than the periodic table and explaining concepts all complicated like it's a Jujutsu Kaisen fight? In this video, I will help you reignite your passion in biology by using anime to explain the science that won this year's Nobel Prize. This year's winners are Katalin, Karikó, and Weissman for their research in mRNA vaccines. mRNA is so hot right now. mRNA is hot like LNAs from Mushoku Tensei. Just like how every man who knows about LNAs is trying to fuck her, every scientist nowadays who knows about mRNA is hopping on the mRNA bandwagon and trying to fuck with it, me included. Before we tackle the absolute unit that is mRNA vaccines, however, we must first hone our skills in calmer lands by learning about the sweet, sweet childhood relationship between mRNA and DNA. DNA is like a shy anime girl, like Sylphie from Mushoku Tensei or Komi from Komi-san Can't Communicate. DNA wants to express herself so bad, but because of her introverted nature, she finds it very difficult to do so. DNA needs help expressing herself, and what helps DNA express her feelings or her genetic information is mRNA. Tadano the mRNA takes information from Komi and expresses it in a way that other people or cells can understand. When Tadano expresses information from Komi-san, we get a new friend. But when mRNA expresses genetic information from DNA, we get a new protein instead. And proteins are the building blocks of a lot of things, including vaccines. Basically, mRNA can make proteins, and proteins can make vaccines. So mRNA can be used to make vaccines. Using mRNA to make vaccines has a lot of advantages over the traditional method. The traditional method of making vaccines is very difficult and bears a lot of similarities to killing one of the 9 titans in AOT. To make a vaccine traditionally, we must first beat the living shit out of a virus. Then, we take the virus in its weakened state and feed it to our trusty ally, our immune system's tactical mastermind, the dendritic cell. The dendritic cell will eat the weakened virus, digesting all of the virus's proteins, and be reborn. When the dendritic cell is reborn, the dendritic cell and the rest of the immune cells in the scout regiment become more powerful, and our body as a whole becomes more resistant to attacks, just like how Paradis became more resistant to attacks after Armin the dendritic cell was reborn with the powers of the colossal titan. This method of making vaccines, however, is kinda risky. Like, at the end of the day, you're still fucking with one of the 9 titans. And so if you don't weaken the virus enough, there's always the chance that the virus still might have enough left in the tank to bite your ass. So some scientists thought, instead of fucking with a titan, why don't we just use mRNA instead? mRNA can make all sorts of proteins, right? And since a vaccine is essentially the proteins of a weakened virus, why don't we just use mRNA to create the proteins of a weakened virus, aka a vaccine? In other words, instead of trying to beat up and capture Bertolt so that we can make a vaccine out of him, why don't we just make a weakened Bertolt in our bodies using proteins produced by mRNA? This way, we don't have to feed Armin a Bertolt directly. We can just feed him mRNA, which will make Armin a weakened Bertolt that Armin can then eat to level the fuck up. Pioneering scientists such as Yor Breyer from spyxfamily started cooking synthetic mRNA in a lab and gave it to their beloved dendritic cells, hoping that the synthetic mRNA would allow dendritic cells to feel happy, satisfied, and produce the proteins necessary for a vaccine. But something unexpected happened. The dendritic cells found the synthetic mRNA completely repulsive, And when dendritic cells tried eating the synthetic mRNA, a lot of the dendritic cells would just die, or they would just flat out reject the synthetic mRNA. Scientists discovered that dendritic cells reject synthetic mRNA because synthetic mRNA is made up of an ingredient called uridine. Uridine is a fundamental yet potentially dangerous ingredient in mRNA. Just like how this cactus is a fundamental yet potentially dangerous ingredient in whatever the heck yours cooking. A lot of scientists thought cooking up a delicious mRNA vaccine was hopeless. But Katalin, Karikó, and Weissman were able to solve this problem by turning to the past for inspiration. Just like how Yor was ultimately able to cook a delicious meal by remembering her mother's cooking from the past. Sometime before 2005, scientists discovered that mRNA in yeast, viruses, and very small amounts in human cells have a modified kind of uridine called pseudouridine. But because it was so rare, scientists didn't really pay much attention to it. That is, until Katalin, Karikó, and Weissman tried ditching the cactus that is normal uridine and substituting it with pseudouridine. What they found was that when pseudouridine is put into synthetic mRNA instead of normal uridine, it completes the dish. The dendritic cells suddenly find the synthetic mRNA delicious, and they are finally able to make the proteins necessary for a vaccine. Bon appetit! This discovery is basically the reason why the COVID mRNA vaccine exists today. And because mRNA can make practically any kind of protein, it can be used to make practically any kind of vaccine, which opens the doors to endless possibilities. And this in a nutshell is why Katalin, Karikó, and Weissman won the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 2023. Thanks for watching, and see you next video.